I'm not going to school. I've told you this. I don't care if you take everything or pay me to go. I'm not going. What's the point? I just fail and fail and fail. You don't understand. I just can't do it.
He arrived, a confident, charming, smiley child. You know, the kind that would stop you in the supermarket aisle. But once he started nursery, he couldn't sit still, so a weighted blanket they placed on his knee. He's not following instructions, seems to be lost in his own thoughts. Don't worry if he's not recalling. He'll soon catch up, don't get fraught. Eventually, he's diagnosed. Severe dyslexia, age 9. Extra lessons to help him focus, extra learning, extra time. Consistently high effort grades. Fails exams with extra time. Consistently high effort grades. Fails exams. He's falling behind. Moderate effort grades. A bit of school refusal thrown in. Fails exams but carries on. And now it's the big league. It's GCSEs. It ends in a mental health crisis. Self-esteem shattered, a vacant stare. Resits maths 4 times, fails by 1 mark. It simply isn't fair. Finally, he quits education, age 17. Destined to build his own life with one that fuels his self-esteem. This was his journey, but unfortunately, he's not alone. These are the statistics that I wish I'd always known. I'm a typical mum to 3 teenage boys. One of the joys of parenting is you are never given the same child twice. My eldest flew through the education system and his confidence soared. So I shouldn't have been shocked when my middle son, who has dyslexia, failed his GCSEs. We'd watched his confidence ebb for years. GCSEs were just the final straw. He started school confident. He started secondary school hopeful. But by the time he was 16, he was convinced he wasn't clever. I was not ashamed of my son, but I did feel shame that my parenting would be blamed. I felt so alone. Turns out, I wasn't. 35% of young people every year fail their English and Maths GCSE. That's 1 in 3 young people. I remember watching a long-distance sports race at my son's school, where all the kids were cheering, the ones at the back over the finish line, the ones that found it the hardest. One of those lovely moments. But I remember thinking to myself, when will my son get a standing ovation in the classroom for coming last? I want to show you something that made me cry. This is a copy of my son's exam paper that he failed by 1 mark. You can see he's got the correct knowledge, but his dyslexic brain mixed up the explanation. People with dyslexia get extra time in exams. And I'm curious as to why this is different to how we organise sport for people with disabilities. Because we don't put them in the same race as non-disabled people and just give them extra time. They have their own race. Charity Young Minds found 2/3 of young people struggled with their mental health in the run-up to exams, with many experiencing thoughts of self-harm and suicide. So what do you do when a relationship isn't working out? You leave. Some quietly quit with their behaviour, while others simply stop turning up for the race. Most parents know this as emotionally based school avoidance, where anxiety, not defiance, keeps a child away. Over 1.5 million students are persistently absent. And if you've lived this, you'll know. This is not a statistic. It hurts. I couldn't help but wonder, has my son failed his exams? Or has the system failed him? This is a copy of this room, a seating plan of this room. And I just want to use it to help explain some statistics. If every seat in this room was a recipient of free school meals, only 43% of you would have passed your English and maths. If every seat in this room was persistently absent, then only 35% of you would have passed. And if every seat in this room had special educational needs, then only 30% of you would have passed. That's 7 in 10 of you failing. But if every seat in this room was special educational needs and also recipient of free school meals, that figure goes down to 17%. That's 4 out of 5 of you that would have failed. 1 in 5 children have special educational needs and disabilities. Most teachers say their initial teacher training did not fully prepare them to teach these pupils. There is a promise of more funding, but teachers are already stretched. They are asking for more staff, not more pressure. 20 years ago, Sir Ken Robinson asked the question, do schools kill creativity? It was one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time because it landed with so many of us, because we saw ourselves in it. Bright, capable individuals that just didn't fit the system. What we didn't name then was that alongside creativity, self-esteem was also being damaged. 20 years later, very little has changed. Sir Ken said, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. My son has had some inspirational dyslexic failures to look up to. Einstein, Jamie Oliver, Stephen Bartlett all failed their exams. But to be okay with failure, we need strong self-esteem. And when exams fail a child, it's the self-esteem that takes the hit. And the damage doesn't start there, it starts much earlier. Years of high effort with much lower results than their peers. If creativity requires the freedom to get it wrong, then what happens in a system where getting it wrong is consistently ranked, recorded, and repeated? Children are expected to stay motivated in a race they never seem to win. Let me tell you about my friend's brother, Brandon. Gift of the gab, salt of the earth, kind of kid that would do anything for anyone. When Brandon was 14, he was caught at school selling multi-packs of Lucozade to his mates for a profit. So how did school reward this risk-taking creative entrepreneur? They suspended him. Brandon was a recipient of free school meals and had attributes that should have been recognised as part of a special educational needs profile. He's 21 now and in prison. Sadly, not every dyslexic goes on to become a celebrity or an entrepreneur. They're half as likely to go to university and far more likely to end up with serious consequences later in life. Not because of who they are, but because they're being measured in a system that simply wasn't designed for them. Pre-16, schools are driven by league tables to prioritise traditional academic subjects, often at the expense of more vocational, creative and BTEC courses that these very children thrive in. And then at 16, it becomes official. Without a pass in English and maths, you cannot go on to do level 3 A-levels, BTECs, or complete many apprenticeships. Resits are compulsory, despite a 15% pass rate. Yet when these children are offered a different, more applied format exam that's equivalent to a GCSE called functional skills, 60% pass maths and 80% pass English. Same children, different format. Same GCSE, 15%. This tells us something. The issue is not intelligence. It's access. Listen, I'm not saying we should scrap exams. I'm asking why we only offer one definition of success. Why do we still insist on measuring English and maths in only one way, when we already know what works? Functional skills, an equivalent to a GCSE. Far more children pass these exams, yet the education system has hidden them behind GCSE failure, instead of integrating them in earlier. If we shifted this, if we integrated them in earlier, we would have no new qualification, no lowering of standards, just a shift that stops telling thousands of 16-year-olds every year that they're disqualified from the race. Because once self-esteem goes, everything else gets harder. So, what can we do while we wait for the system to catch up with common sense? Change comes from the ground up, not the top down. You and I have the power to change things. Through my work at Word Up, which is a spoken word evening in Tunbridge Wells, we mentor young people. Because when someone gives you a stage, rather than a delayed start, something shifts. Local organisation Goal 17 are building momentum with their Care Lever mentoring, with results previously thought out of reach. 35 to 50% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic, far higher than their 10% representation in society. The truth is, we all know someone who was failed by the system and went on to phenomenal success. We call them exceptions, but they're actually evidence of everything this system fails to see. Creativity, empathy, sense of humour, influence, teamwork are not side skills. They are core human skills. We just don't award medals for them in the race children are forced to run at school. And in the dawn of AI, we need these skills more than ever before. When self-esteem is eroded early, it doesn't stay contained. It shows up in our workforce, in our economies, in our mental health statistics, in our communities. A society that tells a third of its children every year that they have failed cannot expect to thrive. So together, let's show them they haven't failed. The system has failed them. Together, we can mentor them, train them, hire them, inspire them, cheer them on. Help them to open the doors that have been slammed shut. And teach them there is more than one race to win. Thank you.